Hey, Blue Crew, how are you? Hey, I am so blessed here today because these two people that are next to me, I absolutely adore and love. The last few years, we've got to know them on not only a professional level, but a personal level. And these two are two people that are absolutely walking integrity. And so honored to have them here today. And as most of you out there watching and listening right now know, Bridge to Blue exists not only to honor our heroes in law enforcement, but to also build that bridge between law enforcement and community. And I don't think I have to tell anybody that bridge has been damaged in the last season or two. And there's a lot of restoration that needs to happen. There's a lot of proactiveness that needs to happen. And one of the things about these two and the other officers that work with them is I've watched these guys the last few years be totally engaged in doing exactly that with the people that they're working with here in the community. And so what I did is I asked them to come today and just kind of share their hearts with us a little bit, and have just a little talk and what is it that they're doing to build that bridge and be effective, not only in the ISD that they're employed at, but in the entire community. How are they affecting the community? How are they building that bridge? How are they making relationships with all those people, not only the kids, but the families and so forth around them? How is that happening in today's culture and so forth? So again, Chief Kimberly, Corporal Montoya, just so honored to have you guys here. And I appreciate you. So, Chief?
Well, we appreciate you. We appreciate being invited over. We've, as you said, I think when we started with Bridge Blue, it's been 4 years, 5 years now?
So.
It's been a crazy and wild ride, but I will tell you this. Every year, we pick up the phone, we call Troy, say, hey, we've got this going on, this event, this activity, and he's, without question, I'm in. Usually I have to tell him the price tag after the fact, but he's always been good to us. He really has. And that part of it, I think you've probably seen me do some interviews with this team before. And some of the big things for us is that it is truly bridging the blue. Now, as law enforcement, obviously, especially working in a school district, we don't necessarily have a budget for a lot of these things, but I will tell you to watch the officers. I can assure you these events and things that we do are going to occur whether we have help from our wonderful community partners like Bridge to Blue or some of the others. I mean, they're still going to go on because the servant heart that people like Corporal Jones and our team that I sit here while I get to claim the chief title, I'm continuously humbled and honored to serve with the group of fine men and women that work for Klein ISD. The servant hearts are just nothing short of amazing to watch them. As we were getting ready for this, we were talking about some of the different things going on. And we had an event last weekend where we go out. It's called Police Pals. And I'll let Corporal Jones tell you a little more about that. But she sent out an email across the department looking for volunteers because these guys are doing this on their own time. And within 3 minutes, she sent the next email, got it covered. She had literally covered it. And that's just a testament to the servant heart that our guys have.
Yeah. Chief, just real quick before she shares that, how big is Klein ISD? I mean, how big of a school district is it?
Klein ISD is spread out over 88 square miles. We serve 54,000 students, about 7,400, 7,500 employees, and best guesstimate somewhere around 250,000 residents. The residents in our community is always important to make sure that while we're an ISD and the students and our staff are a big component of that, we never forget community, because without community, we don't exist. Without community, we can't do the really neat programming and the neat things that we get to do. It takes a village. It truly takes a village.
Wow, that's huge. That's huge.
Okay, Police Pals is an event where we get some officers together and we go out to different communities or events that takes place in the Klein ISD district, and we fingerprint children. Some of the events is some like the family night. We just did one that he spoke on just a bit ago, Saturday, in a neighborhood, an HOA event. But we have families come out and we fingerprint the children. We make sure that their parents are available and they get permission for them. But there's a place in the book where obviously their fingerprints are. There's a place to keep an updated photo, a hair sample, and a DNA swab in the event that something happens to their kid. then they'll have that information at home. God forbid it doesn't, but it's definitely some good information to have. And we give away a lot of trinkets. We give away junior badges, bracelets. I mean, you name it. And things like that. As we have people like Troy, you know, that pours into our programs, and we're able to get those things to continue the process. And I know we're going to touch on Holiday Heroes eventually, but Chief Kimberly mentioned how every year he's available for us. We know that our meal is going to be paid for during Holiday Heroes, a big event that we have. And so that's another way that we bridge that gap with the community, is by, you know, sitting down, eating with them at the restaurant. And Troy and Bridge the Blue Foundation, they make that happen for us. So.
Well, it's and I'm not knocking any other departments out there, but I got to say that out of the departments I've had experience with, you know, over the years and so forth, I've never seen a department so engaged in the community as you guys. I mean, it's incredible. So in today's culture, with everything that's going on and so forth, what kind of attitudes and how are you guys being looked on? How are you being communicated with? What's the perception out there that you're seeing?
You know, Troy, that's funny you asked that, because on the surface, you know, with everything going on, with, you know, with the trial going on this week and the George Floyd situation and the defund the police movement and those pieces, that's on the surface. That's on your news media. I can tell you that our community, without question, supports us. I can't tell you the number of times I've sat down to eat a meal and go to pay for it at the end, only to have the person working the register say, "Oh no, 3 different people argued about who was going to pay for your meal or who was going to take care of it." You know, that's that silent majority piece. We recognize that. What's that? Squeaky wheel gets the grease type thing. But I can tell you, we still live and work in an amazing community. You know, one of the things that I'm most proud of, it's a phrase I have, and everybody here has heard me say it, you know, I didn't have to come to work today. I got to come to work today. Mm-hmm. And that makes a difference. You know, I am, again, honored and humbled to work and serve this community. This awesome, Klein is this neat little oasis that when you go somewhere and you try to explain it to them, it just, they're like, you just can't. You truly can't explain what it is. But I think it's about culture. You know, in our department, we spend a lot of time looking at possible candidates to come to work for us. We want to make absolute certain that they fit who and what we are, that they are tactically sound, that we're doing all the law enforcement things, and that we're taking care of each other and doing that right. But equally, if not more important, is the fact that when we're out in our community, that when we see a small child, we acknowledge them, we smile, we give them a bracelet, we make sure that they know that we're here for them and what our role is. And that's, you know, or something as simple as, I assure you, you want to see a chief of police get really mad where you can read the blood pressure and all that stuff on his head, drive past a car that is broke down in a marked unit. There is unless we're on a life-saving call, there is nothing more important than stopping and making sure that that community member is safe. And that's important to us. That's super important to me. That's part of that initial onboarding that we have. You know, every candidate spends a couple hours with me, and we make absolute certain that they recognize, because they get it from me, and then they're going to get it from the assistant chief, from the lieutenant, from the sergeants, from the corporals, and it perpetuates. It's just all the way down. And if they don't fit that mold, then we wish them the best of luck, and we move on. We find the right candidate, and that's extremely important to me.
Mm-hmm. Well, you said something a minute ago that kind of reminded me of this, but I think that our children today, and I mentioned a little while ago, you know, I remember growing up, and I wanted to be a police officer from the time I was 4 or 5 years old, and man, I used to beg my parents to buy me this little policeman outfit, you know, that was in this catalog and so forth. I mean, I'm serious.
Telling off on how old he is.
All the time I was begging them, you know, but they never did get it for me, you know, and eventually I got my own. But my point in that is, growing up, I used to see kids dreaming all the time to be a police officer, a firefighter, in the military, a doctor, you know, whatever, you know, the first responder looks like, you know, they were heroes. They were heroes in their eyes, and man, they wanted to be just like them. you know?
Yeah.
And you mentioned something a little while ago, you know, just how, you know, our kids are being molded a different way. And will you guys share on that just a little bit?
Well, I think what you're talking about, it's incumbent on us, but it's incumbent on us as a law enforcement community to make sure that we are putting our best foot forward, that we are taking the time, whether it's to stop and talk to a small child, whether it's to make those connections. I'm super proud of all of the different ways that we mentor, whether it's going to be Leadership Academy, Heroes Academy, Bearcat Den, you name it, all the opportunity. Oh my goodness, the law enforcement practicum. You know, we actually have kids come to our office and they get high school credit and they go through our field training program as high schoolers. Now, that's how we're going to keep this, you know, it's incumbent on us to bring the next generation into this profession. And, you know, quite frankly, it's getting harder and harder. You know, one of the things, and I'm going to tell you some of the cause here that I see, and this is a layman's thought, but when you interview a community and they say, no, we love our police. It's those police over there we don't like. And then you go over there and you interview that community. They say, oh, no. We love our police. It's those police over there that we don't like. So what we've got here is we've got across the country pointing fingers at each other, but they're not really, you're not seeing the root, the base, your own community that says, no, we like and support. And so it's become a narrative that has become the flavor of the week, unfortunately. And that narrative, as you said, how do we get small kids to want that police officer, that firefighter costume for Halloween, or what's the next step? How do we get that to occur? You know, and I can tell you, without a significant shift in that silent majority I'm talking about, we're going to have a really hard time. And I think you were hitting on a minute ago about pain.
Yeah.
We are going to find, unfortunately, I think what's going to occur is we're going to be hiring people that probably have no business, and forced to lower our standards to the point that we may end up with people that have no business in the law enforcement profession. And it perpetuates the cycle, because those are the guys that are going to be on the news using excessive force, or guys and girls. Those are going to be the folks, and it perpetuates. So then it's going to be beat us up more, and it's going to be that much harder to draw our candidate pool from the small children. When I first came into this, everywhere I went, go to the store, hey, I want to be a police officer, I would tell them how to go about getting in the academy, what they needed to do, the grades. And it's just getting so hard, and those conversations are less and less these days.
It is. Before we move on, I worked a minor accident sometime last week, and the young lady was so nervous, and the father goes, well, she's never talked to a police officer before, so she's really nervous right now. And I said, well, we got to change that. So I made it a point this morning. I went and found her. And
Nice.
hey, how you doing? You know, just to check on her, just to, build that relationship there. She was so nervous. Like, I mean, her father, he's like, it's not the accident. He's like, she's just never talked to law enforcement. And I'm thinking, you've never been in any trouble. Like, what, why would you not want to speak to law enforcement? So I made sure to, reach out to her this morning and just to try to build that relationship there. And she was just like shocked, like, you remember me? I'm like, yeah.
That's incredible.
I did. So
You see me beaming right now.
Yep.
Yeah.
Because
You should be.
I've got 55 of them, and this is the heart. This is the mindset. What she did is extraordinary, but that's the way. I mean, what she's talking about is a culture. You know, when our kids, one of the things that we work hard on is good kids make bad decisions sometimes.
That's right.
I was one of those.
Yeah.
I imagine you were too. And so, but instead of throwing that kid away or dismissing that, one of the things that I'm most proud of is that we actually go to our alternative school and we send every week a campus send. If you have kids there, you're expected to go visit with them and just check in. How you doing? When they come back to the home campus, you should be meeting with those kids when they come back so that we can help. What they did is done. Let's reintegrate them back into our campus. Let's reintegrate them back into the society, if you would. And that's exactly the same piece. Now, sadly, what I'm talking about is the kids they've ended up in trouble for something, and that's how we've met. I'm super proud of the fact, just a minor accident. Hey, let me go fix this. You know,
So something that you guys are really hitting on right now, and for the Blue Crew, I'm still here. I'm just kind of off camera over here.
he said something about hiding because he wasn't dressed for today.
Tattletale.
Yeah,
I am telling
this
off
guy. So one of the things that our moderators, and we have about 107.1 thousand people in this group, and there's so many things that get shared. 99% of it is very positive. There's a few things that we let in, just like what happened with Officer or with Trooper Walker here a couple weeks ago, or a week ago. But a lot of what our moderators have been dealing with, I don't know if maybe you guys can speak to it a little bit, but there's a whole nother side to Leo supporters that they don't like the humanizing of the badge. They think it's disrespectful. For example, there's one officer that it constantly gets shared in the group, like every week. He's in uniform and he's dancing and he's just having fun. And most people absolutely love it because it's like, man, he's just a human being. He's doing a job. And, but we've had a few people speak up and say, well, I think that's an embarrassment to law enforcement. Well, what would you guys say? I mean, how do we change those people's minds? Because in my view, and I'm somebody who not only has a best friend that's in law enforcement. My sister just got out of law enforcement, but she was Weimar PD. My uncle is a sheriff deputy for Mason County, and I have a good friend of mine that he's in Brenham PD, but he's a detective. And I've got military. I've got my dad's a captain with Houston Fire Department. So I've got military first responder blood in my family. And even with the background that I have, I look at this and I say, they're just human beings. Like they have a sense of humor just like the rest of us. They don't have to look like Stone Cold Steve Austin all the time. And so what would you guys, how can we help bridge that gap, even for current law enforcement supporters that think that humanizing the badge, if you will, is more detrimental to law enforcement?
So before I answer that, I do have a question. I'm going to question back. This officer you're talking about, where is he working? Is he looking for a job?
I am not sure, but I can find out.
Because I'm going to tell you, that sounds like somebody that needs to work for us. So I think that ought to identify my feelings about humanizing the badge. Tell me how many people flossed for the governor. The little kid dance. Yeah, that was me. You know what? I'm not embarrassed. I'm not ashamed.
Come on.
And our if our community, we're not robots. We are human. We live. We breathe. We have families. We have things. And I'm sorry, but I think that just what you're talking about, that whole rigid, unapproachable, I think that is a huge detriment to all law enforcement.
Come on.
Mm-hmm.
Without question, I think that's a huge detriment. Don't get me wrong. I think that there's a time and there's a place. At 3 a.m., if I'm rolling up on a car and my spidey senses tell me something's wrong, I'm still going to be cordial. I'm going to be friendly, but I'm going to be on high alert. And that's what I was talking about, hiring our people. That's the training that we're doing, but they're going to do it with a smile. One of the things that, and I get back, but when the cuffs go on, the counseling starts. That is one of our mottos, because good people make bad decisions. But if you are that rigid, the cuffs go on, and you simply drive them and book them to the jail, and there's no conversation, what exactly good occurred here? What good? If you're working with this kid and this kid, I've had kids come to me and say, you know what? You treated me with kindness, respect. You made the difference. I'm through with that part of my life and I see a better way. I mean, why wouldn't we invest in that? I'm literally just, and I don't mean to beat up on any supporters of this group, and I hope I'm not, but it just befuddles me that we would not want that. You guys realize that it costs the same amount to send a young man to prison as it does to send him to college?
That's
yes.
Crazy.
I can send you to the penitentiary for 5 years, or I can send you to a state university in a brand new BMW for the same amount of money.
That's crazy.
So why wouldn't we invest in these kids? Why wouldn't we invest in our community? And so you'll see me get a little fired up about that, because I totally, adamantly, without question, disagree that we ought to be humanizing in every turn. If you want to bridge the blue, if you want to bring the next generation in, you know what? That 14-year-old that did something silly or stupid, by the time they're 16, their record's clear. They can move on through and hopefully come back and work for us. Absolutely. Absolutely.
Love it. I love that.
You know, forgive me, I'll get a little fired up because I just don't understand how we could not want humanizing of the badge. It's so critical.
Yeah. Corporal Jones, did you have something to say about that?
I mean, he pretty much spoke on everything. But, I mean, I will say, like, I'm kind of one of the ones that I'll do the TikTok, you know, but there's a time and a place for it. We're not going to do it while we're on duty. No, that's a negative. We know that.
Wait. What do you mean?
I mean, like, if we're...
Hold on. I've seen my assistant chief dance at a pep rally.
Okay, well... Okay, I'll take
Different
that back.
scenario. No.
Well, if we're out on a call or something like that, obviously we're not going to be in the, you know, in the principal's office TikToking. But yeah, I mean, it shows the kids that, you know, we get up and put our clothes on just like you do. And it's crazy because I see some of my students on my campus in Walmart and they're just like, you go to Walmart? And I'm thinking, yeah, you know, but they really don't feel, you know, it's always that mentality that we're just mean. We're here just to arrest you and then it's over with.
Well, and there seems to be this mentality of it's us versus them.
Yes.
And it's like, no, it's them protect us. Like them defend us. You know, it's funny though how you say that because that's absolutely the truth.
It's a time and a place, but I mean it's a relationship builder because it's, you know, it just you know, they're just like me, you know, they have a job to do, you know, at a certain time, but at the end of the day, you know, they'll come down and, you know, be normal. We're humans, so I have no issues with the whole, you know, dancing, TikToking and things. You know, as long as it's appropriate and it's done at the right time and the place, why not?
Absolutely. I love that.
So what she's talking about and what I think we keep circling back around to is like our leadership academy. It's where we work with 15, we identify 15 students in at-risk situations. I didn't say at-risk students, I said in at-risk situations, and 5 or 7 super high flyers, and same with our Heroes Academy and our junior highs. And these are kids, and I can go on and tell you a story and remind me, I want to talk about that, but these are kids that need that push that you can do, you can be, you know, we talked to them about, we've identified you as a leader and within 2 or 3 weeks, you can't tell the difference. But those kids, when I sit down with those kids, I literally take all of this off and become David. Yeah. Now you want to see some kids kind of, wait a minute. And my counselor becomes Jennifer. Now we have rules. Hey, when we leave this room, we got to go back to the proper titles. But while we're in here, and they know about my kids. They know about my wife. They know about my dogs. They know about whatever's happening with us. And it reminded me because one of them, I said, yeah, you know, my wife's birthday is coming up. I'm going to take her out to a real nice dinner. And they're like, you do that? Mm-hmm. And that's sad to think that we're that we're like a robot that at the end of the day, we shut off and sit at the police department waiting to come back the next day. So that humanizing piece. But you want to talk about bridging. So I'm going to be brief if I can, but a few years ago, our very first Leadership Academy, now we had 11 campuses with about 22 per campus. We booked a church venue to have a graduation, pomp, stance, dress blues, ROTC, you name it, it was done. It was a regular graduation. Within 24 hours, we had more RSVPs to attend that church than it would handle. So we moved it to a high school auditorium. And the auditorium seated about 2,500. And the night of the venue, people were still at the outside in the hallway because they couldn't get in. It was beyond standing room only. And it was one of those, and you know, the reflection. So I'm like, wow, this is crazy. Look at all these people. And so it was probably 2 years, maybe 3 years later. One night I woke up and it was like a ton of bricks just fell on me. And I went, that's why. You want to know why it's so well attended? Because these are kids that from the time they started school, every time the phone rang from the school or law enforcement, it was negative. Mm-hmm. It was negative reinforcement. It was your child's done. This is the first time that child got to stand up there with their certificate in front of mom and dad because they had moms, dads, aunts, uncles, grandmas, grandpas, people at the store they invited to, I think. I don't know. But it hit me that this is the first time that we've told some of these kids, we're proud of you. Look at what you've accomplished. Look at what you've done. And I will tell you, our success rate for those kids that continue through our program, where they know their officer now and they come up. She's on an intermediate campus. I guarantee at the first of every school year, she's got this whole drove from 6 elementaries or whatever it is that feeds. And they go, hey, do you know Officer such and such? That was my Leadership Academy officer.
Wow.
And we just built that bridge. We built, from a safety and security standpoint, these kids know what's happening. Those are our eyes and ears. I have 54,000 eyes and ears, sets of eyes and ears out there. And that's what helps. And that's how we maintain the safe and secure. So to tell me not to humanize it, if we didn't do those programs, if we didn't have that, how would we have kids coming up and saying, hey, look, you know how many times I've had a kid come up to me and say, hey, I'm not a snitch, but I need to tell you what's going on. And it may be a serious act of violence that's about to occur or something that's about to occur. And by having that rapport and that relationship, those kids come talk to us.
It happens.
Feel safe.
That's awesome.
You know, because every time when we go back and look at serious acts of violence that occur, when we study them, and we ask the kids, why didn't you tell anybody? I didn't have anybody I knew. I didn't have anybody I trusted. That's always the first thing. I suspected something, but I didn't have anybody I knew or trusted. So our goal now is, whether it's a crossing guard, a bus driver, a police officer, a counselor, teacher, assistant principal, maintenance worker, I don't care. Every kid needs somebody on a school campus that they trust enough to tell them. And that's our little piece of how we're, you know, it's a force multiplier, because 22 this year, 22 next year, 22 the year after that, that group, as they're steadily feeding into her schools, her programs, and in the high schools, and they know us. They know us by name. They may not know us by name, but they know us by patch, by badge, by uniform.
Yeah.
Sorry, I will get preachy, but this is how we're bridging, starting way back when they're little bitty.
Yeah. Wow. So let's kind of look at it a little bit more specific in one area then. Let's say the average citizen or the parent, you know, how can a parent that's on here, because we get asked all the time, you know, how can we be that bridge? How can we be a bridge between law enforcement and community, kids, whatever it is, you know? How do we be that bridge? What would you say, either both of you, to those parents, to those community leaders, to whoever it is, you know, how can they be a bridge? How can they build that relationship? How can they help change the direction that our society is going? Which you clearly, you know, emphasized earlier. If we don't change something, if we don't change something quickly, we're already headed down a path that is going to be detrimental for law enforcement, which means detrimental for this country. So we have to take every angle we can to build those bridges. That's my personal belief, and so forth. So what would you guys suggest to parents and the average citizen? How can you build a bridge?
Well, I strongly believe that you're a product of your environment. So I would say for the parents, just be mindful of the things that you say. Like, even when you see things on TV, I tell people all the time, the media doesn't show everything. They show the part that's going to the attention grabber. Mm-hmm. So just be positive when it comes to law enforcement, or if your children are in school, have your kids get to know the officer that's on campus. Let them know that they are there to protect you, not to just arrest you or, you know, be mean, but just be that positive force in the household to the students, and let them know, try to build that relationship. Not all law enforcement officers are bad. They're not, you know, mean. They don't want to just arrest you, because I speak for our department, and this is just kind of going off topic a little bit. My nieces, they come to me and they say, our campus officers are mean, and they live in a totally different state. They was like, and I try so hard not to be that officer, but it starts at home. You know, and even there's an officer in every neighborhood, just about. You know, speak to the officers. They come by, and there's a job that the officers have to do as well. But I feel like if they can be that motivating force at home to just say, okay, these are not bad guys. Like, they get to know them, and that alone will help, because you have some even growing up, I've had family members that's just like, you know, when the police come, it's just like, go, get away, you know, don't talk to them, don't be that person. Just, you know, be that positive force, and just tell them to get to know their campus officer. Just get to know the officer that's in their neighborhood. I think that'll be a big help. Absolutely.
Chief, I've heard you over the years give a couple of examples of things that people probably don't think of, that is setting a negativity into their kids' minds and so forth at an early age. and I've heard you say the one about the restaurant. I've heard you say the one about, letting up on the gas pedal automatically, just those things that we don't think about, Can you talk about some of those?
So what Troy's talking about is we're all guilty of it. When we're driving down the street, maybe we're exceeding the speed limit, or maybe we're not. But our first reaction when we see a marked police car is to take our foot off the gas. And sometimes something not necessarily negative, but and the reaction, there's a subliminal message to those two little kids sitting in the back seat that law enforcement is going to get me, that they're out to get me. And the other one Troy's talking about, and I beg you guys, if it's okay if we've done it because you've never looked at the big picture, but I beg you from this point forward, do not do this. Do not walk up to an officer in a restaurant or in a convenience store or wherever they may be with your small child in tow and tell your small child that if they don't act right or if they don't do something, that you're going to send them with this police officer. Because you're reinforcing that negative image unintentionally. I'm certain that you can have the greatest rapport and respect for law enforcement, but you are negatively impacting that perception. You're creating a perception that's negative with that child by doing that. I will tell you, I've been known to embarrass a parent or two. If you don't eat your vegetables, I'll tell the kid, well, I don't like those vegetables either. I'm not taking you anywhere. Matter of fact, if I had my way, you and I go get ice cream right now. Hey, have a bracelet. Just trying to minimize that and then pull the parent aside and talk to them about those conversations, how that creates. Because we want your children to run to us, not from us in the time of crisis.
Yeah.
And Troy, one thing, sitting here and as we're having this conversation that really hit me a minute ago, and some of your viewers may or may not remember. Do you remember how it was after 9/11?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Do you remember that it wasn't, unfortunately, the division that we're seeing today, the us against them? We were one. We were one country. We were united. We were looking out for our law enforcement, our first responders. I assure you, we probably didn't buy a meal for 3 years.
No.
Not that we go around looking for that. Please don't mistake that. But I'm just telling you that people would just show up at the office with just baskets of stuff and just stop us on the street and thank us. And it's crazy to me how I know it's a collection of things, but the latest thing that's occurred. So please don't mistake, viewers. I've seen the video. It appalls me, makes me sick to my stomach. But we can't judge 800,000 men and women in uniform on the actions of one. We don't do that in any other profession. So I beg you to stop and think about that, because sadly, I don't want to make this us against them with the news media, but sadly, if it bleeds, it leads. And that became the top story, the top story, the top story. And the narrative's just grown and grown and grown. And quite frankly, I don't know how we slow that narrative down, but I can tell you that without fail, I have 57 men and women that would not hesitate to step in front of whatever it is that may be trying to harm your child or your loved one that works for us. I assure you of that. And I can't ask you enough to remember that. Let's remember the 9/11, the fact that many of those men and women ran into those buildings. They weren't in there. They ran into them trying to protect. We need to remember that, because I'd love to. I would never want another terrorist to act like that, but I would love to find that sense of camaraderie, that sense of patriotic pride that we had for that brief period.
Yeah.
Well, and sometimes, and make sure I get where the mic can pick me up. Sometimes, so like I'll give you an example. I believe this was either Friday or Saturday. It was Friday. So I went and I got my tires rotated on my truck, got an alignment done, and then I went to go get my truck inspected. So it was right there at the Valvoline off of Kirkendall near Spring Stubner. Sorry, I call it Spring Stupid. It's kind of a habit. but that Valvoline. Well, whenever I pulled out right at the Starbucks right next door was Harris County, and I think sometimes we we get so used to seeing law enforcement around that we don't ever think about being intentional. I actually pulled up right beside them. I think I startled them a little bit. And I rolled my window down. They rolled theirs down and kind of looked at me like, what's going on? And I said, hey, just want to let you guys know that appreciate what you guys do. I said, you guys have a thankless job. And but I want you to know that there's one person today that thanks you for what you do. And it made their day. I think that one of the things that would make a big difference is just whenever we're out and about and then we see a cop, instead of what's my speed, or instead of is my inspection out, like instead of thinking like that, just pull up beside them and just ask them, world, hey, I just want you to know I appreciate what you do.
Be sure you're smiling large when you do. With everything that's going on these days, we might be a little more on edge, unfortunately, but be smiling. Keep your hands where we can see them when you do so.
But sometimes
sorry, that's not funny, but it's sad.
Sometimes it's those simple things, though. It's those simple things, and you know, and even and believe it or not, and this was 2 months ago. I actually got pulled over. I was on my way home from Brenham. It was a trooper that pulled me over, and I rolled the window down. And before he said anything, sir, just want you to know that I appreciate you pulling me over, because as a citizen, there's nothing that irks me more than to see law enforcement, a car or a cruiser right here, someone blatantly runs a red light and that officer just sits there. And I'm like, so I was very thankful that I inadvertently ran that light there on 290 and he pulled me over for it. I was actually very grateful.
Yeah.
And so
I will tell you,
every opportunity we can take, I think we need to take.
I totally agree, but I will tell you one of the things that's really started happening, and this is what worries me, part of that pain threshold we're talking about, is that law enforcement officers tend to be less and less proactive in what they're doing for fear of the recoil or the fallout from being proactive.
Yep.
Because there's this, an officer stops someone, they get out, they start yelling, the cameras come out, this occurs. We've got groups that come out and literally get on our scenes and come at us. You know, we train a lot around that, making sure that our officers recognize what they can or can't do. But it's become very contentious, and much that piece we're talking about, us against them. And I can tell you, as a head of a law enforcement agency, the absolute last thing I want is us against our citizens. There is none of that. There's no way that fits in anything that I believe in. But unfortunately, as I said, the proactive is really tapered off. And it's really scary to me, because if you don't take care of the little things, that's where it starts, you know, becoming bigger and bigger and bigger, a sense of involvement or whatever. Yeah. And I think that what you're talking about, you know, that one stop gets, hey, you're right. You know what? So today was the day I messed, you know, okay, whatever that may be, and move, you know, whatever the outcome of that was, I don't know, but move on from there and recognize it for exactly what it was. That was a man trying to make sure that that young mom with the 3 children that took off from the light, that, you know, you didn't have a collision that could take the lives of someone. That's what that's about.
Absolutely.
It's not about who you are or what, you know, what bumper stickers you do or don't have or whatever. There's a lot of misconception about, you know, I assure you, when someone's running 65 miles an hour and goes past you, I have no idea if it's a man or a woman or anything else in it. I just know that that's the vehicle that was that. And it, as I said, a lot of times it's tough, you know, and I'm very, very gracious, very fortunate that we've got a lot of folks that I think it's attitude and demeanor. Did you guys know, and I think this is so critical, humanizing, that there is a guy, he's a California Highway Patrol motor officer, and he has been a motor officer, last I saw, it was like 18 years, something like some crazy number of traffic stops, and has never gotten a complaint. Wow. Never received one complaint. He works traffic from the time he comes on shift to the time he goes off, and never received a complaint. I would love to have what he has to bottle and share, because that speaks volumes, because you're issuing citations. People don't care for that. There's problems. But this guy, and I've seen some of the videos of him, and He's tactically sound, but he's happy-go-lucky. He's jovial. And it's a model that many of us should aspire to be.
Right on. Well, I know you guys are busy and so forth, so that's one of the reasons why we couldn't do this earlier. But he's got a lot on your plates, and but you know, folks, there's a big job here that we've got ahead of us, and in order to reestablish this bridge and see the mind shifts happen again, because I want to get back to the way it was after 9/11. You know, I want to see that America. I want to see that in our community again, and I believe that it can happen. But I also believe it's going to take a lot of exactly what you guys are doing. You know, starting at ground zero with these kids, and working with them, you know, their entire life. Some of them, you know, and through school and so forth, through graduation, and you guys are making a huge difference. And I just want to commend you on that. Say thank you. Again, it's been an honor and privilege to work with you the last several years and just watch you. And again, I'm just in awe sometimes of how you love your community and the effort that you're putting into it to see that happen and so forth. So, you know, and everybody else, I want to encourage you, whether you're an LEO in the LEO family or just someone who is trying to make a difference, you know, do your part, you know. Watch how you say things in front of your kids and in front of other people. You know, say hello to the local law enforcement. Let them know you appreciate them. Let's make a difference. You know, send them pizza to the police department. Whatever. You know, just do something. Do something. It doesn't take a lot, like these guys have said. Just a small, you know, hello, smile, whatever. You know, it goes a long ways. So I want to encourage all of us to do our part in building this bridge. I want to thank you for being here today. Thank you guys again. And we tell your entire team that we appreciate them and are grateful. You know what? I want to encourage everybody to do something. I want to encourage you to look up Klein ISD online. And it ain't going to be hard to find them, Klein ISD. And I want you to go in there and make some comments, you know, send them a letter in the mail, whatever you can, to the police department there, and just let them know how much you appreciate them and all the effort that they're putting into the kids, our future generations.
How do you spell that?
Sure. So, yeah, you got to spell it Klein ISD Police Department. We're Klein ISD PD on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and I agree, Troy. If you will go look at that, help us. You know, it's one of those things that we're super proud of. I've just been, we're developing a 21st century policing curriculum. And if you guys recognize that almost every tenet of that is based on our kids. And so we're putting that curriculum together to share across the state. Hopefully we'll get it out. But if you'll share that, you know, because I will tell you, I've had opportunity to teach around the state as around the country. And I think somewhere in there, I don't know what the disconnect is, but there's some agencies that come up and say, I had no idea you can do all that. I had no idea that we can be this, that we can do. And so that's how we're going to bridge it. We've got to, you know, this is not 100% the folks out there watching this. This is the guys that wear these, us too. It's a two-way street, and we have got to find it. And I think that if you'll share, and I'd go the long way around to tell you, please share our posts, share our stuff. You know, maybe, just maybe, some chief somewhere in rural America somewhere will see that and go, that's a great idea, and call me, because I assure you, everything that we do, when they call us, we give it to them. When we wrote that curriculum with the Leadership Academy, we were pushed to copyright, to say no, we give it to them. Matter of fact, I'm fixing to host a class here next month or this summer. We've run out of grant money. I don't care. We're still going to do it because it's good for kids. Yeah, it's good for law enforcement. So sorry, another plug, but please go out and share that. I mean, that's a big deal. It really helps us, because the more it's shared, the more support we get, the more funding, the more opportunities, the more. And it builds on each other. And that's how we've grown this program so big.
Yeah, right on. Well, again, thank you. Appreciate you both. Blue Crew, thank you for being here today. Be blessed. See you next week.
Thanks, guys.